These sites have produced some of the oldest artworks in the world.
For 30 years, Nicholas Conard has been excavating ancient art from a cave in southwestern Germany.
Some of the earliest examples of personal ornaments with an arbitrary form, also depictions of things that don't exist in the real world.
The latest treasures to be recovered are two intricately carved ivory birds, thought to be around 40,000 years old, placing them among some of the oldest figurative art ever found.
And this seems to be a bird, perhaps a ptarmigan, that is roosting on its eggs.
And Nicholas thinks objects like these might help explain why some groups of early humans flourished in Ice Age Europe, while others, like the Neanderthals, vanished.
One of the most fundamental questions was always, where do we come from? Why are we here? How do we get here? And those are the questions that we can answer. I really don't like a lot of excitement on the dig, but last year when the birds were found, that was pretty exceptional, right? And what's funny about these figurines is they are so small. One of them's too delicate. I don't really want to hold it because you can actually break the carvings. It's the last thing I want to do. But one is pretty solid. I think I'll take it out of the box and show it to you. I at least find that guy's super expressive. So let's, right. And this seems to be a bird, perhaps a ptarmigan, that is roosting on its eggs, or at least it seems to be maybe puffed up a little bit, lying on the ground in the winter, and the eyes kind of make it, and you can see the pointy beak. And some people I've talked to, they go, maybe it's flying. I don't think it's flying, but one can debate these things. Ice Age art is not always a one-to-one thing where you can say, oh, this is exactly that.
Nicholas and the team have carefully studied these artifacts to try and determine what the artist was trying to convey.
Carving ivory is a bit tougher than carving most kinds of wood. Every single line in the carving has to be done deliberately. You don't carve ivory like when you're on the phone doodling with a pen and just passing time. It's always a willful act. This part of it, that's actually the pattern of the mammoth ivory. Those parallel lines are not markings or feathers, but these carved areas that are a bit irregular, somewhat weathered, but could also depict perhaps feathers. The other bird, in some ways, is a bit surprising because almost all of the figurines we've found, and we found dozens and dozens of them, are very, let's say, compact. And the animals don't have legs sticking out because, of course, they'll break. And this was very unusual because for this bird, the wings are actually completely spread out. We've got the rest of the pieces, but they're broken a little bit. I can't get them to fit quite right. Maybe down the road, maybe after a year or two, when we're really sure we have all the bits, maybe we'll add the other wing. But for now, this is how we're presenting it. What's interesting is it is so small. Really just, a couple centimeters. It weighs almost nothing. And the wings are open, spread out, and you can see the legs underneath. It could be a bird in actual flight. There's been some discussion if it's in courtship, interacting, connection with mating. And those are questions that I cannot give you a definitive answer on.
These birds were found at Hohle Fels, a large cave in the Swabian Jura mountain range that has been of interest to archaeologists for a long time.
In general, it's a very comfortable place to work, but we do have lights. If we turn off the lights, you can see very, very little where we're digging. You can tell that there's light coming in from the entrance, but when you go deep into the cave, you see nothing, just darkness. And what's interesting, what I always like, is to go inside the cave. I've sometimes spent the night there. When you turn off the light, you see at first absolutely nothing. And if it's daytime, gradually you can at least tell where the entrance is because a bit of light comes in. And what I also like is even in dry summers, you hear little drips of water. The acoustics inside the cave are really magnificent. My dig started in 1997, so this is the 30th season in a row where we've been digging, and we're now down about 6.5 meters. We're hoping in the next couple of years to reach bedrock, or at least a point where there are no more archaeological finds. We'll see how that goes. But at the moment, it's really one of the sites that have produced some of the most magnificent Upper Paleolithic and Middle Paleolithic discoveries in recent years.
As the team dug deeper, removing layers and layers of sediment, they uncovered older and older artifacts. Some of the most exciting finds come from the Aurignacian period, around 35 to 42,000 years ago.
That's the period made by the first modern humans in our region. And this is why, the real reason why Hohle Fels and a number of other sites in our area are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, because these sites have produced some of the oldest artworks in the world, some of the earliest examples of personal ornaments with an arbitrary form created by people rather than perforated teeth or perforated shells. Also depictions of things that don't exist in the real world. The technical term is pteranthropic images, images of human beings with characteristics of animals or animals with characteristics of human beings, depending on how you want to look at it. And this is super important because it tells us that people are depicting not only the world around them, but things that they know of from their ideology or myths or thoughts about something other than the here and now and the real world.
The latest discoveries aren't the first bird sculptures found at the site. This water bird, believed to be 33,000 years old, was uncovered in the early 2000s, leading to the possibility that Hohle Fels was somehow associated with birds. But understanding what these items truly represent and the intentions of the artists who made them is a trickier challenge.
I think it's a bit of a stretch to think that these kinds of depictions mean one thing. I think the nature of symbolic society and symbolic communication is that there are layers of meaning and layers of interpretation. One could argue that since they're only at one place, that somehow Hohle Fels is a place somehow connected with birds. That's one possibility. This location is a cave somehow connected with birds. Keeping in mind that at Hohle Fels, the most common depiction now, as of the discovery, are birds. It could also be a talisman. It could be something like, oh, when you reach a certain age, your father or your mother give you this. Or it could be a form of identity, not as an individual, but belonging to the group, somehow associated with birds or this kind of bird or flying bird. It could be somehow capturing some characteristic associated with you as an individual. These are all things that are in the mix and probably were in the mix 40,000 years ago. But I cannot sit here today and say this is exactly what these finds mean.
The meaning and use of each object recovered at Hohle Fels may never be fully understood, but their existence tells us a lot about the people who made them.
Neanderthals knew exactly what they were doing. They were on the top of the food chain. There was nothing wrong with them. They went about their business for hundreds of thousands of years and were very good at what they did. But you still need to ask the question, well, why aren't we all Neanderthals, right? The Neanderthals went extinct. The modern humans must have had some kind of cultural and biological advantage that allowed them to outcompete the Neanderthals. And this really kicks in around the time of all these sophisticated symbolic developments. And I would argue that the origins of figurative art, strong evidence for different kinds of sophisticated artifacts indicating identity, pteranthropic images giving us the proof of a system of beliefs that help people organize their lives, and music. The musical instruments don't just demonstrate music, but they demonstrate, in my opinion, clapping, singing. And it's pretty hard to have music and not dance. And if you have stories and dance and music and all of these things, religion and art, we're dealing with a very sophisticated form of behavior that would be familiar to all living people today.
And the cave may hold other clues to who these people were, in DNA recovered from the sediment itself. Perhaps this will finally confirm the identity of the artists and musicians who once inhabited this cave, and what traits humanity inherited from them.
We are lucky. We found lots of great things, and preservation's good, but we don't have burials. So we don't know too much directly from direct observation on the stature of these individuals, or very much about their bones, because we only have bits and pieces. We, in the near future, should be able to get DNA from the sediments, because the DNA in the sediments is very well preserved. So I think our best hope of answering the question or testing the hypothesis whether these people were making the early art and music or the people who spread across the globe, I think we'll be able to answer that question from DNA. What I always say is, if you were to go back 40,000 years ago and live there, you'd have to learn how to nap stone, you'd have to learn how to hunt horse and reindeer and know what to do when the mammoth or cave bear is nearby. But basically, the people would be very much like ourselves after you learn these skills. Obviously, some of the cultural norms would be quite a bit different. Some of the culinary choices would be different than what you're used to, but I'm pretty sure you'll get used to it. And I do think it's clear that certainly by this time in human history, we're dealing with people who are comparable to ourselves intellectually.